Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. So today's deck tech is on Be'lakor the Dark Master, a 6/5 Demon Noble with flying that costs 3 blue, black, red. It has Prince of Chaos. When it enters the battlefield, you draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the number of demons you control. And on top of that, Lord of Torment. Whenever another demon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So this fantastic demon tribal commander not only benefits you when it comes into play, and of course that is variable based on, how many demons you actually control. Yes, there is a cost to that in losing life, but you also control a ton of cards. But of course, on top of that, on the other side, you're getting benefits whenever your other demons come into play, and there is no downside to that. So your commander itself, by using and abusing its ETB, can keep your hand chock full of fantastic cards. On the other end, when your other demons come into play, they can dish out the pain to your opponent's creatures, their planeswalkers, or also their faces. Most likely their faces, right? We're gonna burninate their faces down to the ground. So this commander has a ton of potential, and there are some pure evil things that we can do with this demon tribal commander. And also with this deck tech, make sure you keep in mind that this is a very budget-friendly deck with every single card in it except for the commander being less than $1. So though Be'lakor is above that dollar threshold by a good amount, it is still a very budget-friendly deck. Also, while I'm going through the cards on this episode, I'm going to be taking you through different tactics to show you how this deck works and how we're going to win with it. And one more thing, if you are interested in this commander and this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. And of course, now with all that said, let's jump into it. First up, there's Wayfarer's Bauble, which we of course can pay 2 to tap and sacrifice to get a basic land in a play tapped. Next up, we are going to be running some fantastic mana rocks to help us ramp as well, with Arcane Signet, which can tap for any of our colors, and Rakdos Signet and Izzet Signet, which we can pay 1 and 2 to tap for their guild's colors. Next up, though, there's Felwar Stone, which can tap for any of our colors most of the time, and Talisman of Creativity and Talisman of Dominance, which can each tap for a colorless, or they can tap for 1 of 2 colors, but they deal 1 damage to us. And then we're going to be running each of our diamonds with Fire, Sky, and Charcoal. They all enter the battlefield tapped and can tap for 1 of our colors. But finally, we're also running some bigger mana rocks as well, starting with War and Power Stone, which enters the battlefield tapped. It can tap for 2. Fire and Mind Missile, which does the exact same thing, but it can tap for 2 mana of different colors. An Empowered Auto Generator, which enters the battlefield tapped, and tap, put a charge counter on Empowered Auto Generator, add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of charge counters on Empowered Auto Generator. So this can build up throughout the game and give us a ton of mana over time. But now that we've talked about ramping, let's get into those demons. And first up, there's actually a demon that can kind of help us out with mana in a way with Dream Devourer. It's a low-to-the-ground demon cleric that says each non-land card in your hand without Foretell has Foretell. Its Foretell cost is equal to its mana cost reduced by 2. So foretelling cards in a way can be a way to basically kind of prepay mana for a card, and also a way to also get cards out of our hand. So we can kind of bank mana to save on a spell later, and also again kind of get around having to discard cards if we are running out of room in our hand. Next up though, we've got some really heavy hitting demons with Desecration, Demon of Catastrophes, and Rakshasa Debaser. Desecration Demon is a 6/6 flyer for just 4 mana, 2 black, so yeah, again, keep in mind with our commander's trigger, we can dish out 6 damage with this when it comes into play. Now, of course, being a 6/6 flyer for just 4 mana does have somewhat of a downside. At the beginning of each combat, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If we do, we tap Desecration Demon and get a counter on it. That is going to be quite costly to our opponents to do so, but yeah, if they don't, they're going to get hit for a lot. Speaking of which, there's Demon of Catastrophes, a 6/6 demon with Flying and Trampled for 4 mana again. But this one says initial cost to cast it, we sacrifice a creature. Now that might be a downside in many situations for many decks out there, but we've got some cards that can help us out with that and actually turn it into a massive upside. And speaking of upside, there's Rakshasa Debaser, a 6/6 cat demon, and whenever it attacks, we get target creature card from defending player's graveyard on the battlefield under our control. So this can help us steal creatures. In an even bigger way, it's got Encore for 6 black, so yeah, basically we can get 3 token copies of it, or I should say 1 for each opponent. Regardless, that is a lot of triggers for our commander to dish out a ton of damage. On top of, stealing even more creatures from graveyards. Yeah, this can be fantastic. Speaking of fantastic, how about Blood Crusher of Khorne, a 3/3 trampler that says other creatures you control have trample. Again, many of our demons can be really big heavy hitters, so helping them get damage through can be huge. And speaking of getting through, there's Seeker of Slanesh, a 3/3 hasty demon that says each opponent must attack with at least 1 creature each combat if able. Forcing our opponents to attack can be really detrimental to them, especially if they end up attacking to us. Again, we've got some really big blockers to take out their creatures. And of course, on top of that, it leaves our opponents more open for us to attack into. And then finally, technically a demon, we've got Changeling Berserker, which has Changeling, which of course means it's every single creature type, including demon. It's a hasty 5/3 that makes us champion a creature. So basically, when this comes into play, we have to exile another one of our creatures, and then when this leaves play, we get that creature back into play. So essentially, this can be a great way to get an ETB from a creature again. And of course, on top of taking advantage of our commander's ETB triggers, we've got some other ones as well. So now let's talk about some more fantastic demons, starting off with Embodiment of Agonies. It's a 0/0 with flying and death touch, which we'll talk about here in a second, but yeah, it enters the battlefield, a counter on it for each different mana cost among non-land cards in our graveyard. That number can get pretty large throughout the game, so this can be a massive threat, and again, when this comes into play, it can deal out a massive amount of damage. But actually, again, keep in mind, since it does have death touch, even if this just has 1 power, getting that 1 counter on it, well, it can take out any of our opponent's creatures, again with our commander's trigger, having it deal out the damage. So make sure you keep that in mind. Anyways, next up, speaking of taking out creatures, there's Overseer of the Damned. It has when it enters the battlefield, you may destroy a target creature. Whenever any non-token creature opponent controls dies, create a tap 2/2 black zombie creature token. Again, we can very easily take out a lot of our opponent's creatures with this trigger and our commander's triggers, so yeah, we can make a ton of zombies with this. And speaking of taking things out, how about Chaos Defiler, a 5/4 trample that says Battle Cannon. When it enters the battlefield or dies, for each opponent choose a non-land permanent that player controls, destroy one of them chosen at random. So this can have a lot of utility for us as well. And speaking of utility, my goodness is Cardor a fantastic card in this deck. Because when Cardor Durmscourge enters the battlefield, until our next turn, creatures our opponents control attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. On top of that, whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life, and we gain 1 life too. So this can really throw a wrench into our opponent's plans, essentially goading every single one of their creatures. And yeah, when those creatures die, we drain them further, and we gain life too. Moving on though, how about Gyruda, Doom of Depths, a 6/6 Demon Kraken, and when it enters the battlefield, each player puts the top 4 cards of the library in their graveyard, so mill 4. Put a creature card with an even converted mana cost from among them on the battlefield under your control. So this might be able to get something great off the top of our own library into play, or maybe one of our opponents have a great creature for us too. Finally though, let's talk about Abhorrent Overlord, a 6/6 flying demon that has, when it enters the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 black harpy creature tokens of flying onto the battlefield equal to your devotion to black. Which, of course, again, we've got a ton of black pips in this deck, so that can be for a ton, making a giant harpy army. And on top of that, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. That actually, again, can be an upside in this deck. Or even if we can't make it into an upside at the time being, yeah, just sacrificing a single harpy is no big deal. Now, before we talk about those upside cards, let's move on and talk about some fantastic clones that can really help us with our game plan as well, starting off with Mirror Image, Undercover Operative, and Vizier Many Faces. Mirror Image is going to enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature we control. So for just 3 mana, this can become a copy of one of our best creatures on the field, and again, we are going to be getting our commander's trigger again. Whether that's actually, our commander's own trigger, when it enters the battlefield, drawing X cards based on the number of demons we control, and then, losing X life still. But yeah, we can refill our hand very easily with this. Now, obviously, the copy is going to go away because the legend rule, but still. That can be very impactful in a lot of situations. Or again, if we copy any of our other demons, we get to ping something or, get any of their other triggers too. So we're also going to be running Undercover Operative, which is a clone that enters the battlefield with a shield counter on it if we control that creature, which of course can make it hard to deal with. Speaking of hard to deal with, well, okay, in a way, Vizier of Many Faces is a clone, and also we can embalm it from our graveyard to clone something again. So yeah, we can really take advantage of some fantastic ETBs with clones like these. And we can also do so with Evil Twin and Dax Duplicate. Evil Twin is a clone that has pay blue, black, tap, destroy target creature with the same name as this creature. So we can actually utilize this on one of our opponent's creatures, and when we do, well, we can take that creature out. Or how about Dax Duplicate, which actually is going to be a clone with haste and dethrone. So yeah, we can not only dish out the damage when this, clone demon comes into play as a copy of one of our best demons on the field, we also surprisingly can attack with it right away, and again, if we're attacking the player with the most life, we get a counter on it and it's hitting for even more. But speaking of even more, there is one card in this deck that in my opinion stands above the rest, and that is the Golden Pig of this deck. So the Golden Pig of this deck, the number one card out of our 99, is Reflections of Littjara. It's an enchantment for 4 and a blue, and it says when it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever you cast a spell, the chosen type, copy that spell, and of course a copy of a permanent spell becomes a token. This can get out of hand in absolutely no time with a deck like this. And obviously I think it goes without saying, but when this enters the battlefield, we're going to be choosing Demon. Go figure. First up, consider what happens when we cast our commander with, say, 2 demons in play, okay? So, since we cast a demon spell, which is our commander, we get a token copy of it, and we're going to be getting their ETBs, which is going to be making us draw 8 cards and lose 8 life. But yeah, 1 card for 1 life is no big deal in commander, and that is a, deal I'll make any day of the week. So yeah, draw a ton of cards. On top of that, we'll be pinging some things down with the other triggers, and yeah, although we only get to keep 1 of those legendary creatures, probably, the regular one, not the copy. But in some situations, I'm sure you might keep the copy. Once our commander is in play and we start casting other demons, we double up on every single one of those demons, which of course also means that we double up on our commander's ability to ping things with those demons' power. So this can provide us an absurd amount of value throughout the game, and in my opinion, it is definitely the Golden Pig. Moving on though, we also have another way to copy some creatures with Mere March. It says, whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under control, flip a coin until you lose a flip. For each flip you won, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste, exile them to gain that extend step. So there's some more chance that actually happens with this one, and yes, we can whiff with it, but we also can get more than 1 token copy of a creature, and this can be really impactful again, especially with those ETBs. Speaking of which, how about Warstorm Surge, which says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under control, deals damage equal to its power to any target. So yeah, this is basically just our commander's trigger, minus, actually having to require that creature to be a demon. Still, yeah, having this in play alongside of our commander basically is doubling up damage, and that can mean a ton of pain for our opponents. And yeah, with that, there's Wear Ancient's Thread, which says whenever a creature with power 5 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you may have Wear Ancient's Thread, deal 5 damage to our creature or player. A lot of our demons have a lot of power, so yeah, they definitely meet this requirement and can dish out even more pain. But next up, let's talk about some ways to take even more advantage of our creatures' ETBs and our commander's ETB triggers with cards like Nightmare Shepherd, Feign Death, and Undying Malice. Nightmare Shepherd says, whenever another non-token creature controlled dies, you may exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1 Nightmare and issues other types. So our token is going to come back smaller, but again, if that creature has any kind of an ETB, we get to take advantage of that. And of course, with our commander, well, we can take advantage of its own ETB, and yes, we can still ping things with other creatures coming into play. Or how about Feign Death and Undying Malice, which are cards that do the exact same thing. Until a turn target creature gains, when this creature dies, return to the battlefield, tapped under its owner's control, they +1 counter on it. Basically, hey, that creature's about to die, bring it right back. Which of course can be fantastic, at protecting our commander or our other key creatures, but also it can be a fantastic way to use and abuse ETBs. So we're also going to be running Supernatural Stamina and Undying Evil, which can help out in similar ways. Basically, again, these are instants that for 1 mana can basically save a creature and bring it back when it dies. Supernatural Stamina on top of that's going to give the creature +2/+0 though, and Undying Evil is going to give the creature Undying, so this only works if the creature does not have a counter on it. But if it doesn't, it's going to come back with a +1 counter on it anyways. And then Kaya's Ghost Form Storm is an aura that can help us out in a similar way. Enchant creature planeswalker you control. When it dies or is put into exile, return the card to the battlefield under your control. So this one even counts exile, but yeah, the important part is all these are great ways of protecting some of our creatures, including our commander, and also using and abusing ETBs. Speaking of which, yeah, we have some blink spells that can help us out as well with Siren's Roost, Planar Incision, and Teferi's Time Twist. Siren's Roost can blink a creature, Planar Incision can blink an artifact or a creature that comes into play with a counter on it, and Teferi's Time Twist can blink any permanent we control, and it's a delayed blink effect. That creature's going to come back at the end of the turn with a counter on it. But yeah, regardless, again, great ways to protect our things as well as use and abuse ETBs very easily. So we're also going to be running some ways to blink multiple things with Ghostly Flicker, Displace, and Illusionist Stratagem. Ghostly Flicker is going to blink 2 target artifacts, creatures, and or lands we control. So yeah, again, we can utilize this for multiple creatures, which really can come in handy with this commander. And then Displace doesn't give us the option, but yeah, we can exile up to 2 target creatures we control to return them back to the battlefield under our control. Illusionist Stratagem does the exact same thing, but we also draw a card. So yeah, simple blink spells with these can provide us a ton of value and also be incredibly deadly. And speaking of value, next up, let's talk about some demons that can help us out with Indulgent Tormentor, Harvester of Souls, and, in a way, Promise of Power. Indulgent Tormentor is a 5/3 flyer that says, beginning of your upkeep, draw a card unless target opponent sacrifices a creature or pays 3 life. Again, we can really take our opponents down quickly with a commander like this, so life is going to be a precious resource, and their creatures as well, so we'll see if players are willing to pay that price or let us take the card. But they won't have a choice with Harvester of Souls, which is a 5/5 death-touching demon that says whenever another non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. Keep in mind this counts our opponent's non-token creatures as well, so yeah, we're going to be drawing a ton of cards with this. And again, with that Death Touch on that ETB with, that Warstorm Surge-esque, commander trigger, we can take out a creature with this. And then Promise of Power is a sorcery that says choose 1, you draw 5 cards and lose 5 life, so that's some nice card advantage there. Or we can put an XX black team creature token with flying on the battlefield or X number of cards in our hand as the token enters the battlefield. And we can actually do both with Entwine 4. Next up, how about Silent Blood, which makes target player draw 2 and lose 2. Read the Bones, which has us scry 2, draw 2, then lose 2. And Cathartic Reunion, which makes us discard 2 cards to draw 3 cards. And finally, how about Big Score, which has us discard 1 card to draw 2 and make 2 treasure tokens. And then Factor Fiction says, reveal the top 5 cards of your library and opponent separate those cards into 2 piles. Put 1 pile into your hand, the other into your graveyard. So yeah, these can really help us dig down into our deck. Moving on, now let's talk about a way that we can actually protect ourselves by padding our life total with a little card known as Raphael, Fiendish Savior. Now this is not a demon, but it is a demon's friend with a Devil Noble, a 4/4 flyer that says, other demons, devils, imps, and tieflings you control get ++1 and have a lifelink. So this is an anthem effect for our demons, and most importantly, this gives them lifelink, so when they enter the battlefield again and utilize our commander's Warstorm Surge-esque trigger, they themselves dish out that damage, so we actually are going to be gaining life equal to the damage that they are dishing out, which of course can pad our life total a ton. And on top of that, at the beginning of each end step, if a creature card is put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, create a 1/1 red devil creature token with, when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. So there's that nice little additional benefit as well. Regardless, we can also protect ourselves by removing some of our opponent's things with Rakdos Charm, Alchemist Retrieval, and Geist Wave. Rakdos Charm says choose 1 exile card from target player's graveyard, destroy target artifact, or each creature deals 1 damage to its controller. So this can even be a good finisher for us as well. Whereas Alchemist Retrieval is going to bounce target non-land permanent back to our hand, or if we cleave it, any non-land permanent. And then Geist Wave is going to bounce target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If we control that permanent, we draw a card. Next up, there's Aether Gale, which can bounce 6 target non-land permanents back to the owner's hands. Languish, which gives all creatures -4/-4 until end of turn. In a fantastic board wipe within Garrick's Wake that is going to destroy all creatures we don't control and all planeswalkers we don't control. But now that we've talked about every single non-land card in this deck, let's talk about the lands. First up, there's Command Tower, which can tap for any of our colors, and Crumbling Necropolis and Path of Ancestry come into play. Tap, it can tap for any of our colors as well, and Path of Ancestry can actually help us scry quite a bit throughout the game with this. Next up, there's Exotic Orchard, which can tap for any of our colors most of the time, and Mirror Landscape, which can actually help ramp us. And then we've got Ash Barrens, which has basic land cycling for 1, and Evolving Wilds and Timberwolf Expanse, which we can tap and sacrifice to get a basic land into play tapped. In a somewhat similar way, we've got Maestro's Theater, which can get any of our basics into play tapped, and we gain 1 life. Riptier's Overlook and Obscure Storefront are very similar, but they can get 1 of 2 of our basics and gain us a life. Next up, we're going to be running our bounce lanes with Is It, Boilerworks, Demir Aqueduct, and Rakdos Carnarium, which enter the battlefield, tap, bounce a land we control back to our hand, and can tap for 2 of our colors. And finally, we're going to round this deck out with our basic lands with swamps, islands, and mountains. And now that we've talked about every single card in this deck, let's talk about the price. Again, like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, every single card in the 99 is less than $1, so even though the commander is unfortunately quite a bit outside less than $1 territory, it's still a budget-friendly deck at $43.15. And actually, if you've already got the basic lands, which are being counted at 10 cents a piece, there's some extra savings for you there. And speaking of potential extra savings, you might be able to save even more by buying this deck on TCG Player and utilizing heavily played and damaged cards, which of course need a home too. Though do keep in mind that this estimated cost does not include the cost of shipping, which might vary depending upon where you live. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you, so make sure you comment below and let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.